Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about what the Gospels really are and who are we really praying to when we follow Christianity. A lot of you are really going to be surprised at what we find out when we investigate these topics on a deeper level. And you'll especially be surprised when we get to who we are really praying to as Christians, because it's definitely not who you think it is. But stay with me till the end on this one, because in order to understand these things, I've got to set some things up first so that it'll all make sense and come together for you. Because this one's really going to be controversial, and it's guaranteed to make some waves. And if you haven't already done so, but you watch and like the videos that we put out on the channel, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell notification button, so that way you'll know when we drop new content, and share it with your friends and your families. Also, make sure to visit the website. It's called Lost Along the Way, and you can find it at lostalongtheway.org. Check out some of the blog articles that are in there and get the video book so you can uncover the truth about who we really are as a people, because this truth has been completely and systematically hidden from us generation over generation, starting on July 4th, 1830, when Andrew Jackson took over the capital of the most powerful Barbary state in the South and renamed it New Orleans. They also changed the name of our nation, which is the Barbary States of America, to the United States of America at this time. And what painting is Trump bringing back to the Oval Office? And who is the most favorite and famous of all presidents to the people who know who you really are, but hide it from you with the use of their education system? Andrew Jackson is. That should be a clue that they know who you really are, since he's going to put that painting of all paintings of Andrew Jackson back in the Oval Office. He's going to put a painting of the president in the Oval Office, who is the same president who took over our nation, committed genocide on us, and put our people on the Trail of Tears. And make no mistake about it, they didn't put any red Indians on the Trail of Tears. That was us. And this is when the church's army of allies, which included Andrew Jackson's army, the French army of the French Revolution, and the Berber army of Africa, started to take over the remaining Barbary states of America. See, almost none of us, except for some of you who've already read the video book, we don't know that the capital of the Barbary states of America is Chicago. But the capital of the strongest of the Barbary states is Algiers, which is today what we call New Orleans. This is the first place so-called white people were freed from slavery, because up until July 4th, 1830, they were the slaves. And it was them who were picking cotton on our plantations. See? But they won't tell you that part. They've got us under such a heavy mind control to where they've convinced us that we were the slaves and we're from Africa, when they were really the slaves from Europe. And they were the ones picking cotton on our plantations that we owned, not the other way around. They didn't own anything in America until this time. Andrew Jackson is literally their Abe Lincoln that started to free the white slaves. And that's why everything today is named Jackson. This is when they came up with the plan to trade places with us. And this is when they started putting us into slavery, starting on July 4th, 1830. And 20 years later, they would start bringing Africans to America as slaves. Only 10 years before the Civil War, not for 400 years, like they like to tell it. They did this for 10 years. Okay? So there's some truth in every lie. But they've exaggerated and embellished their slave story so much and left so much out of it altogether. Like the part that they were the slaves. And they got that way because they were committing crimes in Europe and coming here to pick cotton for us and work in our factories as a punishment for the crimes that they had committed in Europe. And Andrew Jackson and the church's army of allies freed these prisoners and put them in charge of us, their prison guards, or what they called their slave masters. But this is the painting of his favorite president that he's going to put back in the Oval Office, because they throw the fact that you don't know who you are right in your face every day in so many different ways. And when you know the truth, it's so easy to see right through it. There's so much to it when it comes to who we are that's been hidden from us, more than you could ever believe. But I go over all of this in the video book in great detail. And I've got all of the receipts to prove it in the bibliography that's included in the video book. Once you get through all 13 chapters of the video book, you'll never look at yourself in the same way ever again. And you'll be able to see through all of the deception that's been hidden from us right in our faces. You'll know when they're speaking in code right in your face, thinking that you don't know what they're even talking about. And they do this on a regular basis. So make sure to go to the website. It's lostalongtheway.org, so you can start decoding what they're really saying behind your back when they talk in code right in your face, knowing that you won't know what they're talking about. And get your identity back that they stole from you. See, we have a language. We have a religion. We have several flags. And we have a nation and an identity that has been stolen from us. And it's time for us to know who we are again. We had an army and a nation with guns right here in America until July 4th, 1830. And it was the most powerful nation in the world until this time. But we became divided and have never recovered from this division. And that's how we lost it. And that's how they stay in control of us to this day. They saw our internal division and took advantage of it. That's how they took us over. And that's how they keep us in the situation that it's time to get out of. We weren't some butt-naked spear chuckers and African booty scratchers from Africa. Okay? But there's so much to what's really going on. And this is the only place that you'll get this information as of now. There are some other places that you can get pieces of what I talk about, but this is the only place where you can get it all and get it all tied together so that you can make sense out of it and you can get all the proof behind it. All right? Because the Library of Congress agrees with me. All those hundreds of sources I got agree with me. Right? This isn't some pipe dream. This isn't some made up. Are they just looking to figure something out? This ain't that. We have a history. And our history is so deep and so rich. And we need to know who we are. We're the only people on the earth who don't know who we are right now. Okay. So go to lostalongtheway.org and get the video book. Take that first step in finding out who we really are as a people. Because getting our identities back as a people and as a nation, that's the first step in getting our rightful places back in the world. That's the first step to it. All right. So let's get into the video. They say Christianity is about spreading the gospel, and they call the Bible the book of the Gospels. So let's start by finding out where this word gospel really comes from, because that's the first step in uncovering who it is that we're really praying to. If we are ever to begin knowing who we are really praying to, then we have to know what this word gospel really means. Etymology.com says it literally means a good spell from God. And the word spell in this definition says that it means a story or a message. They also say that they get the meaning from breaking the word gospel down into two words. They say these two words are God and spell, or good, which comes from God, and the word spell, which gives us the word gospel. But when we have some higher knowledge and understanding and break the word down from a higher perspective, we also get two words to break down. And instead of getting good, which they say comes from the word God, and the second word spell, we get the words gas and the word spell. God plus spell sounds close to gospel, God spell. But when we look toward the higher perspective of this knowledge, we can instead break down the word gospel by using the word gas and spell, which would make more sense, because the words gas and the word spell gives us gas plus spell, which is the exact word gospel. So let's find out what these two words, gas and spell, mean and where they come from. They say a spell is a doctrine, a sermon, religious instruction or teaching. The gospel, a book of the Bible. So they're telling you right there that the gospels are spells. They also say that the term spell is generally used for magical procedures which cause harm or force people to do something against their will. Now, earlier, when we looked up the etymology of gospel, it said that gas means God. But how do they come to that conclusion? And which God could they really be talking about when they say that? Because they acknowledge and say that gas means God in their breakdown of the word. But what does the word gas really mean? Well, gas means goose. But what could a goose have to do with God? The Egyptians have a couple of stories when it comes to what they call the cosmic or sacred egg in their creation story. This is also where Easter comes from, right? Because we have the bunny, which represents fertility, and the bunny is laying eggs, right? But one of the creation stories that the Egyptians have says that the sacred goose is part of the creation story. And this is also where we get the children's story of the goose who laid the golden egg. But in the real story of the goose and the golden egg wasn't made of gold. Although gold does symbolize what the golden egg really is. This is because gold is the metal of the sun, just like silver is the metal of the moon. And that's why the golden egg represents the sun in the Egyptian story. This is the story of the birth of the sun. And the birth of the sun symbolizes the birth of creation on this planet itself. So this goose, according to the Egyptians, and not only them, but the Romans and the Greeks' creation story as well, the goose is represented by the mother of the sun itself. And when we know some deeper levels of Christianity, we know that the Christians secretly worship the actual sun. I'm not going to get into too much detail about that in this video, but if you do want more detail, watch the video that I just put out. It's called "The Black Codes Prove We Aren't Slaves from Africa," because about midway through it, when I'm talking about the Sun King from France, King Louis the 14th, I get into a whole lot of detail about that. And I also talk about how they've interchanged the letters, the history of interchanging the letters O with U. I talk about that as well. Okay. So you have the sun, which we think of as the sun in the sky, but we also have the sun, which we think of as a child, somebody's son, right? So they used to all be spelled with a U. But like I said, if you want the history behind that and the details behind it, watch that video because I really break it down in that video. And who is the mother of the sun in the sky, which is the goose that's being symbolized? The Virgin Mary, who's also called the Black Madonna. And why is Mary a virgin? Well, because she was the first of all beings, the mother of all sons, or gods, or golden eggs, or silver eggs. She's represented by the sacred goose in these other creation stories, and the golden egg represents the sun. But before the sun, which is the golden egg, there was only the goose. So we've all heard that story of which, or that question, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Well, this is where they get it from. And the answer to that question is the sacred goose, or gods, came first. Before the sun, which is the egg, there was darkness, chaos, and water on the earth, which they say is nothing, but it's much more than nothing. Because it says right in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So before there was light, the earth was there. It wasn't formed yet, but it had water. Darkness was over its surface, and its surface was the water that God was hovering over. Darkness and chaos came first. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, not light. Light came after darkness. And what does chaos really mean? Because they always use this word in a negative tone. So we'll just look it up real quick. It says a state of things in which chance is supreme, especially. And we know they don't like chance because gambling is chance. The confused, unorganized state of primordial matter before the creation of distinct forms. Compare cosmos. The inherent unpredictability in the behavior of a complex natural system, such as the atmosphere, boiling water, or the beating heart. So chaos is the behavior of a natural system, Mother Nature's system. And the goose that lays eggs is obviously a mother, not a father. The Greeks associate the sacred goose with the goddess Hera, the goddess of protection and fertility. And for those of us who know our goddess, we know that she is also the goddess of fertility and protection, and that she is the darkness, water, and chaos that created all things. She's the one who gave birth to the sun, which is the light. When we know that, then we know who it really was who said, "Let there be light." Because the light came after the earth, which we also call Mother Earth. The goose is also represented by the Egyptians as the protector of souls. And they say that geese carry messages between the mortal world and the divine. They are the guardians of the afterlife and act as intermediaries in the afterlife that guide the deceased to their next destinations. So when we know that all of these different cultures acknowledge the goose as the goddess, who we know is the darkness and chaos that gave birth to the sun, then we can see why the etymology is comparing the word gas for God, because gas represents the true and the original God, which is darkness and chaos, not light. And God is a goddess, the mother who gave birth to the sun, which is the light. And when we have an even deeper understanding, and we can see that the word spell also means to substitute, when we have a deeper understanding, we can start to see how the sun, which is not the original God and is represented as a man, has been substituted for the original goddess, which is darkness and chaos, who is represented as a woman. This is where the deception, the impersonation, and the trading of places when it comes to God begins. And what did Andrew Jackson do to the people of Barbary starting on July 4th, 1830? He started the development of their plan to trade places with us and taught us that we were the slaves and they were the slave master. But some of you might say, but darkness and chaos, that's bad. What do you mean? It's the light that's good, not darkness. We're the light workers and we're the children of light. You're supposed to go to the light when you die. I saw the light. And that's what they teach us. And that's because the people who have substituted the original goddess, which is darkness and chaos, for her son, which is their God, are the ones who promote that light, which is the sun, who is a man, is good, and darkness, which is the goose or gas, who is a woman, is bad. And they even teach us this when it comes to people. Muhammad Ali made a good video about how everything white is good and everything black is bad. I'm sure some of you have watched that. He calls out the hidden obvious in this video because everything dark or black is bad when it comes to the Christian church. And even though we are brown in different shades of brown, they don't call us brown. They call us black. And they call the people who are almost white, they call them brown. Right? Everybody's brown except for the people who are brown. Black people are bad. And at the bottom of their caste system that was set up by the church and is still in place openly in many countries. And it was openly set up here too, right? But lately they want to pretend that it just disappeared when Martin Luther King had a dream, right? There's no such thing as racism no more. That's all. It don't exist. It's all in your head. But how could darkness be bad? Because when we think about it, all life starts in the darkness and chaos. All life. It doesn't start in the light. And let's remember what chaos really means. The confused, unorganized state of primordial matter before the creation of distinct forms. The inherent unpredictability in the behavior of a complex natural system, such as the atmosphere, boiling water, or the beating heart. Genesis said that Mother Earth started in the darkness, not the light. And just because it was dark didn't mean that there was nothing there, because the earth preceded the light. The goddess gave birth to the sun, which isn't the only sun, and said, "Let there be light in our solar system," when she created it. This isn't the only solar system. And our solar system isn't even close to the oldest solar system in the universe, let alone the galaxy. And the goose is the creator of the universe, not just the solar system. See, when we plant a seed, we plant it under the ground in darkness, and it stays there in chaos, forming its roots and its structure long before it ever comes out into the light. Its first stages of growth are in darkness, and it has to prepare and organize in the darkness so that it can come out into the light. And what do we have to do when we plant a seed? We have to add water to it, just like the earth. The darkness is where the roots are formed. See, that's where everything starts. And when we look at each other, all of us are formed in the darkness. We're formed starting in our mother's egg, in the darkness and the water of our mother's womb, not in the light. Just like the earth was formed in the darkness before there was a sun. We developed for 9 months in darkness and water, just like a plant does, just like the earth does, just like all life does. And we do this until we have grown big enough to come into the light. Only after 9 months are we finally ready to leave the darkness of our mother's womb and come into the light. We don't start in the light. Nothing starts in the light. Everything starts in darkness and chaos. Even our ideas, which are the seeds of everything we create, starts in the darkness, water, and chaos of our minds. And they manifest there until we speak them into existence using the word to bring them into the light. Everything starts in darkness and chaos and water. Everything. But the people who substituted or replaced the goddess of darkness and chaos by using a spell given to them by the God of light have us completely fooled. Christians are scared of the dark entirely, and they compare everything that is evil to darkness and chaos. But the darkness and chaos is symbolized by the goose, or the Black Madonna, the Holy Virgin, who is the mother of the sun. See, the day always started for us at sunset, not sunrise, for this very reason. Before the people in charge today flipped it around on us. This is because we are the people of the night. All of the stars, which are suns, can be seen at night. But we made a creation that was made to be the opposite of us. And our creation was created in the light. And this is because they were created outside of nature in a laboratory. So they were created in the light. They are the children of the sun, or the children of light. But the people who created them in the laboratory were created by Mother Nature. See, they were all formed in darkness and chaos, like everything else in nature is. So they don't see it the way we have always seen it. Before we were taught to see it their way, because they were made to be the opposite of us in every way. See, they weren't made by Mother Nature, and they were made for a purpose. They were made by the light, which is the sun. Our day always started at night, when the suns, which are the stars, come out, because the start of everything is in the darkness. And even though they were made in the light, they would have never been made at all if the people who were made in the darkness didn't make them in the light. And when we know that the goose or goss, which is the original god or goddess, is the darkness and chaos that created the sun, and we realize that darkness and chaos is God, not the light. And the darkness and chaos is feminine, not masculine. And the darkness is first, just like ladies first. And the light is the child of darkness. And men are the sons, who are the children of darkness, who are the masons, or when we break that word down, Ma's sons, who when stretched out look like stars. And our women are the darkness and chaos. Then we can get that we, the original people, are the children of darkness and chaos, or the children of the goddess, who is the original and true God. And our creation, who was not made by nature, no different than a lot of the plants that we eat, like carrots, cauliflower, broccoli, are not made by nature. And certain animals like dogs, certain chickens, and cows were not made by nature, but in a laboratory by the sun, or the Son, which is Jesus. Our creation are the children of the light, not us. And when we combine the words Gos, which is the true God, and the word spell, we start to understand that the Gospels are the spells that are being placed on the children of darkness and chaos, who are the children of the Gos, or the goose. So the Gos spell is the spell that they put on the children of the sacred goose, who the Egyptians say laid the cosmic egg from which the entire universe was born. And they did this to substitute our original goddess of darkness and chaos for their new god of the light, who is the light of the world, or the Son of God, that is impersonating our true goddess. The impersonator of our true goddess, who has traded places with her and had his creation trade places with us, is the son of the virgin, the son of the goddess, Asherah's son, not her husband. And we can find all throughout the Bible that the God of the Bible is the light, and is always compared to the light. And this is the giveaway. Because when we know the truth about the goose and the golden egg, when we know that darkness and chaos is what gave birth to the light, not the other way around, then it's easy to see that the God of light is not the original and true God. The God of light is impersonating our true goddess. And we know the true God of the Christians is the God of light by looking at their gospels. Some clear examples of this are when it says in John chapter 1, verse 6 through 11, there came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify about the light, so that through him everyone might believe. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. The true light, who gives light to every man, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and through the world was made. And though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. And his own did not receive him as God, because his own knew that he was not God. But the goddess who gave him life was God. The goddess who gave the light life was God. This is why the Israelites were so stiff-necked in the wilderness and would not stop worshiping their original and true God. They would not worship Yahweh as God. They kept going back to the goddess, symbolized as the calf, because Yahweh is the light, not the darkness, that brought life to the light. Psalms 27:1 says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Again, referencing the light. Luke 2:30 through 32 says, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all people, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and for glory to your people Israel. Again, referencing the light. John 8:12. Once again, Jesus spoke to the people and said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life. And there's a lot of others. And this is because the Christian God, Jesus, or Yeshua, or Yah, or Yahushua, Jesus, or all of the many names that he has been given, is the God of light. And he refers to himself as the light all throughout the Bible. And this is because Jesus is represented as the golden egg, which is the sun in the sky that came from his mother, which is represented as the goose or the goddess. The son that was born of the Black Madonna, which is the goddess of darkness and chaos. So the Christians worship the sun. They worship the light. They don't worship where the sun came from, which is our original goddess, which is darkness and chaos, and the mother of all sons. In fact, Christians are afraid of the dark, and they hate the dark. But the dark is what created the light. There is no light without there first being darkness. And this is according to their own Bible. So the worship of the sun or the light is Christianity, which is the opposite of our true religion. And the God of Christianity, which is not the original God, is the opposite of our true goddess, which is darkness and chaos. Christianity seeks to replace the Son of God, who they call Jesus or Yeshua or Yah or Yahushua, and all the many names of the Son or the light, with the original goddess, who is darkness and who is a woman. Christianity was made for those who were created by the light and in the light. They aren't the children of the original goddess, who is symbolized as darkness. They aren't Mother Nature's children, who are all the children of darkness and chaos. And they were not created by her. They were created by her son. They are the creation of the light. And they don't like nature at all, or anything natural at all. Instead of curing you with a plant that's natural, since they can't make money on it or patent it, they don't want anything to do with the cure. They want to give you some fake pill that gives you 20 other things that they can fix. Right? They don't like nature. And this is because our creation doesn't come from Mother Nature. No different than carrots don't come from Mother Nature. Okay? Dogs and certain kind of cows, the black and white cow, that's not natural. Natural cows don't look anything like that. The cows that Mother Nature made, they're not black and white, and they don't look like that. Dogs do not come from Mother Nature. Okay? They come from the wolf. The wolf is what Mother Nature made. She didn't make the dog. Man made the dog. Man made the black and white cow. Man made the pink pig. Man made broccoli. Man made cauliflower. Man made celery. All of these, what we call vegetables that don't have seeds, that can't reproduce on their own because they're not natural. They're not. Mother Nature didn't make them. But this is why our creation was made by the light. And in the light, no different than all of these other things that were made by man. And this is why they worship the light and not the darkness, which is the true and the original God, the Queen of Heaven, because the light is their God. And they were made to be the opposite of nature. That's why they don't like nature. So in order to give the creation of light a religion so that they could worship their God, which is the star that made them, the angel that made them, which is the sun, which is the light, so they could be controlled by their God of light, they invented Christianity. And they did this by replacing our goddess, our real goddess, with their God who created them. Their God impersonated and took the place of the goddess of the stars or the suns, all of the galaxies, the universe, who's the creator of all things. Since the God of our creation is a man, they made the God of the creation a man, because the creation was made by a man. So in this way, they are impersonating our true goddess by making the woman into a man. Christianity is the religion of our creation, and Jesus is their God. But they've got us thinking that Jesus is our God too, because they want us to believe that we're all the same, but we're not all the same. And it's no different from the dog not being the same as the wolf. There's nothing wrong with dogs. We love dogs, but they're not wolves, and they're not the same as a wolf. The dog is a creation made by man that was grafted from the wolf. But the wolf was made by Mother Nature. And we can see that they hate Mother Nature, who is our true goddess. They hate the darkness. They hate chaos. And according to their own Bible, they hate the woman as well. That's why they say she's not allowed to even talk in the church. Period. You got to not like somebody. And you can look this up. It's in 2 Timothy. The woman is not allowed to even talk in the church. And if she has a question, she needs to go home and ask her husband in all submissiveness. And that doesn't count how the man is the glory of God and the image of God. And the woman is the glory of her man. That should just let you know right there. Just that should let you know right there. Right? Women used to be men's property. And it still says you are on the law books to this day. When you look up the definition of marriage, which is really coverture. Okay? Because they use different words to hide all this stuff from you. Right? But you can look that up. I made a video about it. I just haven't put it out yet. I might put it out. But this is all because their God is impersonating our true goddess and has traded places with her. And this fallout that happened between the goddess and her son was the reason for the great flood. When we can really see who's who and who controls the culture that is being promoted today, then we can see this replacing of women by men that's being played out right in front of us right now. We know that politics is controlled by the people who give politicians the most money. This isn't a secret. And they do this through their lobbyists on K Street. We've all heard of corporate interests controlling our politicians. But who owns all the corporations? Well, the church does. They own the entire New York Stock Exchange. All corporations are owned by the church. Every single last one of them. If you want the proof of that, I break it down in the video book. Go to lostalongtheway.org. Make sure you get that. But when we know that, then we know who secretly controls our government and our media, which in turn controls our culture through the use of the corporate interests. Now all we have to do is look around and ask ourselves, who's winning right now? When we do that, and when we already know the backstory, then it's easy to look around and decode what's going on. And who's winning right now? The church, our creation, old men, and these new groups of people that have gotten so much power out of nowhere in the last 30 years. They even say that they're the new black people, and nobody says nothing about it. And they've been fighting for their rights, and they've been getting them. Now, so-called black people have been marching and fighting for their rights since the 50s and 60s, and we're in a worse situation today than where we started. But not this new group, which include men who dress up as and identify as women. They're more powerful than ever. And how did they become so powerful all of a sudden? Well, the people in charge made it so. That they made it that way. See, all of these groups that I just listed used to be at the bottom. The first to come up were the old men, because in the time of the kings, the young men who were the strongest are the ones who ruled the world, not the old men. But once the old men who were able to take over the king by way of the church got in charge, who do they always put in charge of the people that they're trying to take over next? The groups that are at the bottom, the weakest people, the criminals, the disgruntled, the ones who are mad at the best of us, even the children and the dogs. Whoever's in last place, that's who they put first. They took away the rod of correction and discipline from your house in the 90s and put the children in charge of the parents of so many households in the same exact way. Now they're even putting the dogs in front of you. So this is a tactic of the people in charge to put the people at the bottom on top so they can weaken whoever it is that they just took over or are trying to take over. But so-called black people's form of government has always been the monarchy. And who was in last place in the monarchy? Well, the gesture, which is the comedian, was. And who did the people who are in charge, which is the church, put in charge of the king and the king's people, who are the aristocracy, who are so-called black people, when the church took over the king? They put the gesture in charge of the king, the comedian. And all you have to do is look around and you can easily see that the gesture or the comedian is our new king now. They told us this is what they did when they did the Kings of Comedy tour. They gave us one comedian for each of the 4 Barbary states. And they gave it that name, the Kings of Comedy, for a reason. All of them are living like kings. But who are our real kings? Because they're at the bottom now. See, they made a joke out of the monarchy. They mock the monarchy. And how do we know this? Well, let's just take a quick look at Mardi Gras in Galveston and in New Orleans. And we'll take a quick look at their floats. Okay? And what do we see? We see the dancing queen and the dancing king and ugly, fat, big, nasty looking queens. Now, instead of ruling the kingdom, they mock the king and the queen by having them being made fun of and dancing. And notice that while they make all these jokes about the king and the queen, who do they hold in the highest of esteem during their parades? Who do we see everywhere looking like he's just the man? Who is it that they're worshiping in their Mardi Gras parades, which they distorted after they took over each city that they celebrate these Mardi Gras events in? Well, they like to call him Lord Bede Goticus, who's the Joker, who's the gesture, and who else is he? They tell you exactly who he is in their parades. He's Momus, the Greek god that just so happened to be expelled from Mount Olympus by Zeus, who was tied to a rock, just like Prometheus was in the Caucasus Mountains. He was also blamed for Zeus's decision to start the Trojan War as a way to reduce the population, just like the Great Flood was ordered by Zeus to reduce the population that Prometheus made and also saved during the Great Flood. During the Renaissance, he was characterized as a mouthpiece for criticism of tyranny. And what is tyranny? A tyrant. That's where tyrant comes from. And dictator. That's where these words come from. Right? Tyranny is being governed by the monarchy, which is our form of government. That's why they hate it so bad. Being governed by the king and the queen, who has way too much power as evil king, the evil tyrant, that dictator, right? Who they could never be a part of, his bloodline, so they could never have any power. So they hate the king, right? But Momus is also the son of Nyx, who is the night and she didn't lay with anyone to have him. So he is also born of the virgin. Momus is also the joker in the card deck. And when we play spades with the joker is the top card over the king and the ace. And when we don't have any jokers, and we play with the twos instead of the joker, the smallest card becomes the biggest card of all of the cards. The one at the bottom becomes the most powerful. And these are all examples of how they take the bottom of society, the disgruntled, and the ones who are looked down on, and place them on top. This is the motto of the Christians all throughout the Bible. And you can look this up in a lot of different places. Just for example, Mark 9:35 says, "And he sat down and called the 12, and he said to them, if anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all." Matthew 20:16, "So the last will be first and the first last." And Luke 13:30, "And behold, some are last who will be first, and some are first who will be last." When we're in church, since we've been placed at the bottom, we look at this like one day God is going to put us on top. But no, this is the philosophy that put you on the bottom because you were already on the top. You were always the people who controlled everything and ran the whole world. And it started crumbling for you throughout various phases. One of the biggest falls was in 1492, then later in 1688 with the Glorious Revolution. And then Andrew Jackson, what happened with him in July 4th, 1830. Right? So we were always on top, but they erased our memories, so we don't know that anymore. And who are they worshiping during Mardi Gras? They're worshiping Momus. And why? Because he is their god, the son of the night goddess, Nyx, born just like Jesus was. And his creation was always on the bottom until July 4th, 1830. They say Mardi Gras started in New Orleans in 1833. And Mardi Gras started in Galveston, Texas in 1867. Right after Galveston, which became the new capital of Barbary after Algiers, which is New Orleans today, was taken over on what we celebrate as Juneteenth, 1865. So Mardi Gras and all the carnivals are a celebration of them taking you over. And they throw it right in your face, but we don't see it. But that's why it's so important that we start to see what's going on so we can stop looking like complete fools. And so we can stop worshiping who they call the Joker or the Fool. February, which just so happens to be Black History Month, was the last month of the year until the church changed it. It was a month of purification where no one worked for the whole month. It was associated with fire, which is the soul, which is the goddess. And our end of the year festival was called Februalia, which was associated with the goddess Vesta, the hearth goddess. February 2nd was also considered the day of Juno Februa, the mother of the war gods. And what's the symbol of the war god Ares? The sun. Cicero said the name Vesta comes from the Greeks who call her Hestia because her powers extended over all altars and hearths. He also said that all prayers and sacrifices ended with Vesta. So the festival that was made to honor our goddess and she has many names, just like Jesus does, was changed to what the church calls their Feast of Fools, which is Mardi Gras, after the church took over all of the places where Mardi Gras is celebrated. And this is when they celebrate the church takeover of our temples and the monarchy. This is their celebration when all morals of society are flipped and the king would become the slave. And now it's the only day when it's okay for women to show themselves. And this is because they hate women. She is not the glory of God. She is the glory of her man and is to remain silent and in submission according to the Bible, because they don't like her. And this is because they hate women and they are mocking them. Because before this, women could always show themselves and always did. And no one was getting raped or called out for it. No different than a man does today. I go to the gym and men take their shirts off all the time. Either because they're hot, uncomfortable, or they want to look at their bodies and let everybody else see. But let a woman do that. See? She can go to jail for doing that at the gym. But the man can do the exact same thing wherever and whenever he feels like it. So why can't she? Well, it's because the church hates women. And the church is in charge right now, secretly behind the scenes. And the church has replaced our woman goddess with their man God, who is the light. They hate darkness and fear chaos. African women can walk around with no shirt and no one rapes them or looks down on them, even in cities, because this is their tradition. But the Africans respect women. They don't hate women. But the church has replaced our goddess with their God, which is a man. They have replaced the original and true goddess of the universe, which is a woman, with a man. And when we know who owns all of the corporations in the world, which is the church, and can see who controls the politics, owns all of the media, which again is the church, then we can see why all of a sudden they've been promoting that men replace women in every single way. Now the church-owned magazines and corporate organizations are naming men as the woman of the year. Time magazine, a man is the woman of the year. A woman can't even be woman of the year anymore. Now the politicians who are all paid off on K Street in Washington, D.C. by the church-owned corporate interests let men use women's restrooms and put tampons in men's restrooms. Now the politicians in the culture are letting men take over women's sports entirely. And then at the same time, they're trying to tell you they want some women's rights. Now, how could you really want women's rights when you allowing a man to enter women's sports knowing that she can't never win again? How are you supporting women's rights when you're making a man who puts on a dress and lipstick, you're making him the woman of the year? You don't support women's rights when you do that. You don't love women when you do that. And we know who's really doing it and who's behind it when we know who owns all of the corporate interests that buy off all of the politicians that pass all of the laws. Now the politicians in the culture are letting men take over women's sports entirely. They don't care if a man completely destroys a woman in the boxing ring at all. They don't care. They think it's funny. The people who are behind all this, they laugh at it. They really think it's funny. They have gotten so much power that they can start coming out of the closet now and do the same thing that they did with our goddess, with all women. They can replace the woman with the man. And we run around thinking that it's the devil. And it's the devil who's behind all of this. No, this is Momus, the Greek god of mockery. That's the king of Mardi Gras, the son of the night goddess who was a virgin named Nyx, who is also Jesus, the sun god, who is impersonating our true goddess in the same way that they are promoting men to impersonate women and take over their bathrooms and all of their sports. And this is why they do it. And this is where it comes from. This is why men who dress like women and who want to have surgeries to become women have gained so much power just out of nowhere in the last 30 years. Because back in the 90s, dressing up like a woman and going into their bathrooms, see, that would have got you killed, right? But they've been grooming our society by using social media and using the media and using everything that all these corporations that they own and all the politicians that they buy for their big coming out party that they started when gay people became all of a sudden the new black people. Once we decided in the name of love to start accepting this new lifestyle that was in no way accepted in the 90s, that would get you beat up in the 90s. See, the door was open to start accepting the people who replaced our goddess with a man who dress like and want to get surgeries to become women. See, it's the church who's behind all of this, not the devil. But like with so many other things, we complain about something that the church does and all these conspiracies and everything else. And then we say that the solution is to run back to Jesus and we need to we need Jesus. We need to be in the church. And they just laugh at you every single time. So many of us are just so easy to manipulate. They make our men wear dresses in Hollywood. They've been grooming us for this for a long time. And we run around talking about, oh, this is the devil. And the solution is to run back to Jesus and run to the church when no, Jesus is behind all of this. The church is behind all of this. The God of light is behind all of this. Momus. And he has so many more names. That's who's behind all of this. The church is impersonating our original and true goddess. The church owns everything. The church owns Hollywood. And they control our government from behind the scenes. They're the ones who you keep calling the devil. So you really got to start figuring this thing out and start to see what's really going on, all right? Because it's time for us to start breaking this gospel that we remained under. It's a heavy mind control. And it's time to start finding out the truth about who we really are as a people. We have to break this mind control that we're under. And that's the reason why I wrote the video book, Lost Along the Way. Because generation over generation, we have become more and more lost along our way. All right? So go to the website. It's lostalongtheway.org. So you can start to see through this manipulation game that they've been playing on us. Because they're so slick with it. But it's time to wake up to the deception that's going on and get our memories back. We have to know who we really are as a people if we are to ever get out of this situation that we find ourselves in. Marching and protesting and complaining and getting new laws, that's not going to do it. That's not going to do it. You're never going to get out this situation till you know who you are. But once you get through all 13 chapters of that video book, your life is going to be changed forever. And that's an absolute promise and a guarantee. But you can get it at lostalongtheway.org. All right. Make sure to go to the website, lostalongtheway.org, and get that video book. Start learning who you really are. It's the first step. It's the very first step. And you won't regret it. Your eyes, once they're open, they can never be shut again. All right. All right. So I'll see you on the next one. All right, fellow barbers. Peace and love.
This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now.